Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I hope you are enjoying this series, and today we are going to add another level to our series. So in all our previous video you might have seen how we can set up TypeORM and how we can handle multi-tenancy with schema based isolation level. So today we are going to make a database level isolation. Okay. So first of all, what is a schema level isolation? So in previous video you might have seen that we have created multiple tenants, but all those tenants were residing within a single database. So what a schema isolation? It is a namespace within a single database, and multiple schemas can exist in a single database. Okay. So each tenant has a assigned schema. Okay, and they share a same instance of database. Okay, so that is what a schema isolation means, and you can refer back my previous video to have a walkthrough how we can create multiple schemas and instantiate separate tenants in our database. So if I provide an analogy to you, it is like a shared folder within your hard disk drive. So the schema isolation can be visualized in such a way that you have multiple folders in your hard drive. So there are multiple folders. It is how the analogy of schema isolation works. Okay, but what is database isolation? So database isolation is like you are having separate hard disk in your system. Okay, so in this we have separate database for each tenant. Okay, and they are managed separately. So all the tenants are entirely isolated. It means that the entire database has its own instance, and the tenant is visualized by means of that particular pointing to that specific database. So if I provide an analogy, it is like you have separate hard disk drive for that specific system, so that any of the hard disk does not intervene data of another hard disk. So this is what database isolation means. Okay, so I hope you are clearly able to visualize, but we will go through a like a matrix when to choose what. Okay, so like whenever this kind of approaches are discussed, each one of us either go into a white area or a black area, but there is some kind of a gray area in between. Like we have to look into all the metrics, like what is which of the approach is more performant. Okay, which approach is good for what applications. Okay, so we'll discuss them one by one. So when to use what? So if you have a basic lightweight isolation level and you require less complexity in your application, you can go for schema based approach. Whereas database approach, it enhances security, and it simplifies the resource allocation, but it can increase the complexity because you need to handle the pull connections. Okay, so in schema only one pull connection is created. Okay, but in database every time you create a like invoke a instance, you need to create a new pull connection. Okay, so based on performance, so single database with multiple schema is performant. It avoids overhead with multiple database connections. Okay, but while you are working with multiple databases, it can lead to performance issues because you need to create server connection pools, and we need to allocate resources accordingly. Okay, if we consider scalability, schemas are horizontally scalable. You can split multiple schemas across a single instance if database grows too large. So you can increase your memory of your main database, and accordingly it will scale up. Okay, but if you are going with database isolation approach, it will require a large number of database. Okay, so it makes migration and all those things more complex. Okay, because you need to go into individual database, apply the migration, and whatever upgrades are there, that we need to manage. So it is quite complex compared to this. As per the resource utilization, in schema we have a shared compute, storage and memory allocated. Like within the single instance, whatever RAM ROM that DB has, the connection, like the compute, storage and memory is shared. And it might become noisy because you are at a time you are handling multiple schemas. But if you have some dedicated resources, so the compute storage is as per the database allocated. Okay, and it is very precise, and but it can potentially be more expensive. Okay, backup and restore. So in schema, you require a single backup. Okay, so it will require some additional effort to apply backup for all the schemas. Okay, but whereas in considering a database backup, okay, it is quite simpler and more intuitive, because you can easily restore individual tenant database without affecting others. Okay, so in schema you need to isolate and then take a backup, and then isolate other tenants and then take a backup. Okay, which is like quite complex operation. Okay, whereas in case of single database you can simply take a backup. It is like straightforward. Okay, so I hope these points are clear. Okay, now we need to build an app infra. So I hope you are following my playlist and my videos here. Okay, so this is part 2 on handling the multi-tenant application by using Postgres and TypeORM. Okay, uh, okay, so we will go to the tenant service. Now let me open my discovery app. I will just discard all the operations here. Okay, I will go to tenant service file. Okay, so as we know, in previous video we had discussed that this is the main raw query that we are applying to create a schema. Okay, so our approach was so much robust that just by uh, plug and play you are able to create a multi-tenant application by means of database isolation. So you don't have to code much in this series. Okay, so one simple thing you have to do, I'm just copy pasting it, but the change is like in this raw query only. Okay, so what this raw query means, we should create a database with a UTF level of encoding, which is a human readable form, and it follows a template, a basic template to replicate our database. So this is how you are able to create this. So we have commented the create schema script, and we have added a create database script here. Okay, then in our migration file we have to go to migrate tenant.ts. Okay, here we have added a schema name. Okay, so instead of schema name it will be public by default. Okay, and also this query needs to be replaced, because previously you might remember, like you were picking up schema name from information.schemata. Okay, but now we will have a separate raw query for this. So so the basic raw query is select that name as name from PG database, where that name is like tenant underscore. Okay, so we are applying this kind of regular expression to fix that, like uh, we can list down all the database here following this kind of pattern. Okay, and we are able to run the migration. So instead of schema now we have database name. Okay, so I hope the things are clear. Like default will be the discovery DB, and as soon as you create a new tenant with this abbreviation, you are able to apply the migrations, like initialize and run the migrations. Okay, so that's it. And I think one more change I need to make is like you might have seen this file that we have created in our previous video. So if any like schema name is not found, we must instantiate a uh, public schema by default. Okay, I think I am missing something here. Okay, it will be null college operator applied here. Okay, so by default we must create a public schema. Okay, so let us go through creating a new tenant. So here is db first, I will create a db second db. So uh, in body just we have to pass on name, and the default basic route is post api with slash tenants. Okay, so once I hit this post api, we are getting a message that tenant second db second is successfully created. So I will go to my local databases, I will just refresh my list. So uh, here you are able to see that tenant underscore db second is successfully created. But once I go to table, I am not able to find any migration or any entity file or any table created. So for that we have to run our migration. So this is the basic command that you might have seen in my previous video, yarn migrate tenants. Okay, once I run this, you are able to see that first. Okay, so here you are able to see that by default it is applying public schema, and it is running all the migration in my new tenant. Okay, so once I revisit here you are able to see that I have one migration file, and I have this new entity created in my tenant db second, and I have all the rows in my table. So let me create one more table here for you. So I am creating db third. So tenant db third is successfully created, and once I refresh my database, okay, so just below this tenant db second, tenant db third is successfully created. And once I migrate my schema, so all the entities are applied in my database. So it will start a transaction, it will apply all the migrations, and it will commit the transactions. So once I revisit my database and see the tables, so my migrations are applied and new entity successfully applied in all my three tenants. So I hope you have got a very deep insight of what a database isolation is, how we can create multiple instances of databases, and how we can apply migration files. And the thing was such like our old architecture pattern was simply straightforward. uh, like by means of plug and play we are able to achieve this kind of things. So I hope you have enjoyed my video. Thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.